Hi, Gaius.
Hi, guys.
All right, so, Eli, don't be a goof. Eli, what book are we going to read about tonight?
Here's George.
What's he going to do, do you think?
Get out of the zoo and find the man and the little hat.
Okay, so that's a good guess. The title of the book is Curious George Takes the Job by H.A. Ray.
It's actually not that one.
No, it's not?
No.
What is it?
Look at the first page.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what it's all about, but I'm just telling you what the title says.
Cool.
Yeah, he is going to get out of the zoo, okay.
Yeah, and it's not Curious George.
Well, I think he got a job there. It looks like he's doing some work, so let's read it and find out, okay?
He did get a job.
Oh, he did? Okay. So Curious George takes the job.
I think it's just an edition version of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we've settled what the title is, so let's read the book, okay? Curious George takes the job. This is George. He lived in the zoo. Buddy. He was a good little monkey, but he was very
Curious.
He wanted to find out what was going on outside the zoo. One day, when the zookeeper was not paying attention, George got hold of the key for the cage. When the keeper discovered what had happened, it was too late. George was gone. Ooh. Where was George? They looked for him everywhere, but they could not find him. George was hiding in the hay of his friend, the elephant. Finally, the keepers gave up looking for him. There he is, hiding under the elephant. George found a nice, cozy spot to sleep under the elephant's right ear, and the next morning, before the zoo opened, he got away safely. There he goes. Once in the street, George felt a little scared. What should he do in the big city? Maybe he could find his friend, the man with the yellow hat, who had brought him over from Africa a long time ago. Only George did not know where he lived.
Yeah, he did bring over from Africa when he was a hunter.
Oh. There was a bus stopping at the corner. George had never ridden on one.
This is from a movie, Curious George, not from Curious George Get a Job. Did you know that?
Okay. Quickly, he climbed a lamppost, jumped on top of the bus, and off they went. Is that how you ride a bus? You climb on top?
No.
No? Whew. Now they were right in the center of town. There was so much to see that George did not know where to look first. If only he could go on riding like this forever. But after a little while, George got tired and a little dizzy. When the bus slowed down to turn into a side street, George jumped off. There was a restaurant right in front of him. Something smelled good. Suddenly, George felt very hungry. The kitchen door stood open and George walked in. On the table was a big pot. Of course, George was curious. He had to find out what was in it. What do you think is inside of it?
Pasta.
Oh no. When the cook came back, he had a big surprise.
The cook did not mad.
The cook was not mad?
Yeah, it's just a caddy.
Oh, it's just spaghetti?
Yeah.
Okay. Spaghetti was all over the place, and in the middle of it was a little monkey. George had been eating yards and yards and had wound himself all up in it. The cook was a kind man and did not scold much, but George had to clean up the kitchen and then do all the dishes. My, what a lot of them there were. The cook was watching George. "You are lucky to have 4 hands," he said. "You can do things twice as quickly." "I have a friend who could use a handy little fellow like you to wash windows. If you would like to, I will take you over to him." So they went down into the, what's the underground train called?
The subway.
Yeah, and took an uptown train to the cook's friend, who was an elevator man in a skyscraper. "Sure, I can use you, George," the elevator man said. "I will give you what you need for the job. You can start right away. But remember, you are here for washing windows. Never mind what people inside the house are doing. Don't be curious or you'll get into trouble."
Oh, that guy is the wrong guy.
Oh, okay.
That guy, the Wobby guy who has honey, but what guy tells him to do it, it's actually Mr. Glass.
Okay, did you know that this is not exactly the same as the movie or the TV show?
Why?
Because it's a book that came before those things. So there might be some differences, and that's okay. Oh, okay? Okay. George promised to be good, but little monkeys sometimes forget. George was ready to start. My, how many windows there were. But George got ahead quickly, since he worked with all four hands. He jumped from window to window, just as he had once jumped from tree to tree in the African jungle. For a while, George stuck to his work and did not pay any attention to the people inside. Of course, he was curious, but he remembered his promise. In one room, a little boy was crying because he did not want to eat his spinach. George did not even look, but went right on with his work. In another room, a man was taking a nap and snoring. George was sorry it was not his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He listened to the funny noise for a while, then went on working. But what was going on in here? George stopped working and pressed his nose against the window. Two painters were working inside. George was fascinated. Painting looked like a lot more fun than washing windows. The painters were getting ready to go out for lunch. The minute they left, George climbed inside. What wonderful paints and brushes they had. George could not resist. Is he following the rules?
No.
No.
We're going to get in trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Which is gross, I'm going to get in trouble, buddy.
You think you will?
No, you're not going to actually not.
No, okay. An hour later, the painters came back. They opened the door and stood there with their mouths wide open. The whole room had changed into a jungle, with palm trees all over the walls, a giraffe and two leopards and a zebra, and a little monkey who was busy painting himself on one of the trees. Then the painters knew what had happened. Where's the giraffe? Can you show guys? Yeah, where's the zebra? And how many leopards are there? Can you count?
1, 2.
1, 2. Luckily, George was close to a door. He ran out as fast as he could. After him ran the two painters, then the elevator man, and then the woman who lived in the place. "Oh, my lovely room, cried the woman. "Don't let him get away." George headed for the fire escape. George reached the end of the fire escape. The others had not caught up with him yet. Here was his chance.
George go kaboom.
Oh my goodness, okay. They could not jump, but George could easily jump down and escape. In a moment, he would be safe. Poor little George, he had forgotten that the pavement was hard as stone, not like the soft grass of the jungle. What happened to him?
Go kaboom.
Oh, poor George.
See?
Oh my goodness. Too bad. The fall broke his leg, and an ambulance came to take George to the hospital. "He got what he deserved," said the woman, "making my apartment into a jungle indeed." "I told him he would get into trouble," the elevator man added. "He was too curious." George had to lie in bed with his leg high up in a plaster cast. He was very unhappy. And it all started out so nicely. If only he had not been so curious, he could have had a lot of fun. Now it was too late. Who's that, Eli?
The man in the little hat. And why Why is he white?
Why is it white in this book?
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of yellow in this book, so maybe they just left him white. But next morning, George's friend, the man with the big yellow hat, was buying his newspaper. Suddenly, he got very excited. "This is George," he shouted when he saw the picture on the front page. Quickly, he read the whole story and then ran to a telephone booth to ring the hospital. "I am George's friend," he said to the nurse who answered the telephone. "Please take good care of him so that he will get better quickly. I want to take him to a movie studio and make a picture about his life in the jungle. Don't let him get into any more mischief until I can take him away." Finally, the day came when George could walk again. "Your friend is going to take you away this morning," said the nurse. "Just wait here for him and don't touch anything." As soon as George was alone, he looked around at all the strange hospital things. "I wonder what is in that big bottle," he thought. See that big bottle?
Yeah.
George was very curious. You know what it says?
What?
It says ether.
What's that mean?
Ether is like anesthesia. It'll make you feel tired. It smelled funny. Suddenly, his head began to turn. Then he felt as if he were flying. Then rings and stars danced before his eyes. Then everything went dark. I think George fell asleep. And this is how the man with the yellow hat found George when he came to call for him. They picked him up and shook him, but they could not wake him up. He was so fast asleep that they finally had to put him under the shower. How surprised he was when he woke up. Should we wake you up like that sometime?
I don't know.
I'll just put you in the bathtub when you won't get out of bed. What do you think? You think it's good? George said goodbye to the nurse and the kind doctor. Then he and the man with the yellow hat got into the car to drive to the movie studio. In the president's office, George had to sign a contract. Now he was a movie actor. What a very important monkey. In the studio, George was kept so busy all the time that he forgot to be curious. He liked the jungle they made for him and played happily there. Do you think this is like when Uncle Adam makes movies?
Uncle Adam really makes movies.
Uncle Adam really makes movies. I bet it looks just like this. We'll have to ask him about it next time we see him, okay? And when the picture was finally finished, George invited all his friends to see it. The doctor and the nurse and the ambulance driver and the man from the newspaper stand and the woman and the elevator man and the two painters and the cook and the reporter and all the keepers of the zoo. Now the lights went out and the picture started. "This is George," the voice began. "He lived in the jungle."
Ooh, George is gonna. I love this one.
You love this one?
George is gonna try to get the hat.
Yeah, he was a good little monkey. He had only one fault. He was too curious. The end.
See, this time you're gonna put in this part. You're gonna take off the hat and try to sit down with the man and the hat don't want him to.
Oh, okay. All right, do you want to say goodnight to your cousin?
Good night, guys.
You want to tell him you love him?
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Good night, guys. Love you.
Good night, guys.